After one of the funner MLS seasons I can recall, we are heading into a marquee matchup, I think, in the MLS Final with LAFC versus the Philadelphia Union. Two teams that I think are representative of two different ideologies when it comes to MLS. And I think it's going to be a really exciting matchup. To discuss it, we're bringing on a man who I think knows a thing or two about LAFC. He is the broadcaster for LAFC, but he is also the soccer OG. He is Max Bredos. Max, thank you for coming on.
Sam, great to be here. Always great to join you. I enjoy our conversations, and I know we're going to enjoy this one because, as you said, this is a pretty unique final. And being here in Los Angeles, I'm certainly feeling it. I get to go to the Don Garber's State of the Union a little bit. I'm so excited to hear the questions. I'll come back with a report for you.
So let's start out with the two teams in the final. Two of the teams that have really led the way throughout MLS. Is it fair to say that the two best teams are in the final this year?
Considerably. And I spoke to a lot of people regarding before the playoffs about what to expect. And no one would expect the two best teams to get in the final. Obviously, you try to be clever when you're making your World Cup. Pardon me. I've done that too. Everyone else has compared MLS Cup to the World Cup. See, it does happen.
MLS World Cup.
You can't fault them. But sorry, this dog is going crazy. But when I put the MLS Cup playoff predictions, which I highly discourage anyone from doing it because you're going to be wrong.
Yeah.
You would be insane to put 1 versus 1. But I did. And I spoke to Matt Doyle, who came on my Soccer OG podcast. He did. And then a bunch of people did. I go, why are we doing this? And I go, I don't know. We've seen this all season, and these teams look really strong, especially at home, which is what they were able to achieve in a regular season, which kind of mattered for a rare instance here in 2022. The only team that we could really think of that you could kind of put in that top line was CF Montreal, and even then they had their limitations. But these are two really watertight teams. Of course, MLS Cup playoffs, anything can happen. But I'm not really surprised we ended up with this. I'm thrilled we're happy we did it too, because for the same reason we picked them, that's why we want to see them, because we know the players, we know the coaches, we know their stories. We've been kind of locked in on these two clubs for the majority of the season because they've been the best, and we have talked them up ad nauseum. And it's when you get to a showpiece event, you want those teams. You want the Celtics, Lakers. You want the Red Sox, Dodgers. I'm going all over here with these U.S. soccer analogies. But it's not going to happen for MLS, but I think we can embrace it. I think the rematch between Seattle, Toronto in 2017 is kind of on that top line, and that's about it. The David Beckham teams were great, but their opponents weren't on that same level. Yeah. You have two teams on a really high level right here.
Yeah, and two teams that I think are representative of these differing ideologies in MLS, where you have LAFC, that's the big market, big spender, wants to be the super team, signing the big players from Europe. And then you have the Philadelphia Union, who are known as this team that are smart spenders, not necessarily big spenders, build from the academy type situation. Would you say that's a fair representative of the matchup, or are people going a little bit overboard casting LAFC as the big empire? Football is back, and BetOnline remains your number one source for all your football betting needs this season. You'll find the latest odds, matchup info, player news, and game trends. And as your continued source for all wagering info, BetOnline features live betting, free contests, live scores, and giveaways all season long. Always the fastest and easiest way to bet all your favorite sports and events like MLB, MMA, tennis, boxing, and even golf. Head to betonline.ag to join and receive your 100% welcome bonus with your first deposit. Make sure to use promo code BELIEVE to receive your rewards. Bet online, where the game starts.
It's a bit overboard, but I can understand it, because when you see LAFC and you know, they came out when they first said, this is our identity. It's like the Showtime LAFC. We represent Los Angeles, the jerseys, the stadium, everything about it. I was watching the local news here in LA had, this is how big this has gotten in comparison to past MLS Cups. Obviously, we're wearing LA glasses here, but they had the arrival of the Philadelphia Union leaving Philadelphia upon getting out to Los Angeles. They interviewed Jim Curtin, and he was like, that's Team Hollywood. And I get it. There's a lot of celebrities in the stadium. And they do spend at a higher clip, Philadelphia, but not the highest in MLS. Not even, not even in the top five. I'd have to check. They're around there, but there are other teams that spend a lot more. I think it's a pretty savvy team. They want to win, but they find ways to make it work. And Philadelphia, rightfully so, um, gets the moniker of the great academy. And they're pushing FC Dallas, probably past FC Dallas when you look at the width and breadth of players to come out of that academy, from Brendan Aronson and Mark McKenzie, Austin Trusty, who was from there, and then obviously the new group. And we're all excited about Jack McGlynn, me included. And that's why I kind of like it too, because I like the academy players. So LAFC doesn't really have a completely fulfilled academy at this point. They're going to get there with MLS Next Pro, but they've been pretty crafty in finding some good young talent out there in unconventional ways. Mamadou Fall, who's on loan at Villarreal, scored a goal yesterday. Villarreal B, I should say. And then also Mahala, Bryce Duke, who's now with Miami. They're looking to find talent in a lot of ways, as opposed to making a big swoop for a big star name. And when you look at some of the transfer fees, yeah, they're big, but they're still looking for good value. When you look at the South American guys, Jose Cifuentes and Chiqui Palacios and Chicho Arango, who's a little bit older, they're looking for guys that they can get and hopefully make a profit on if they do sell them down the road. So it's not an accurate description for that. I think there's some more similarities between the two teams. Being under the MLS umbrella, I think you kind of have to follow that. But if you can be under that MLS umbrella and make an MLS Cup final, you're doing something right inside that system.
You mentioned the excitement happening in LA right now, and I think that that's palpable whenever you watch some of LAFC's games. I mean, the atmosphere in that stadium is just absolutely electric. I love having those games on, even if I'm not actively watching them, just to have that atmosphere, in my house, hearing the fans, hearing the drums, hearing the chants. It's just incredible. I'm always fascinated with the different franchises in MLS and their different approaches, and especially the expansion franchises. And LAFC is a fairly new team that has come into the league and become one of the marquee teams, it seems like, right away. So I'm curious, what do you think LAFC did right whenever they started their franchise to get them in this position where they're not only winning games in the stadium, but they've created a culture and they've created a fan base and people excited and passionate about this team?
I'll start there. They empowered their supporters. So, it was 8 years ago when they found out that they were going to get an MLS club. So their motto has always been street by street, block by block, shoulder to shoulder. And that's what they did. It was almost finding out people that would have adopted a supporter culture and said, how deep would you take this? Are you devoted enough that this could be a huge part of your life? And so many people said yes. So that was the foundation. And I remember when I got hired, which was 2018, it was in the preseason, and we flew up to Sacramento where they had a friendly. And I didn't know what to expect. I knew this was all embryonic. So I was going around, and there's Pat Aviles, who's does incredible work for LAFC and is kind of the connection to the supporters and all the everything they do with regards to apparel and so forth. He goes, "You want to meet the supporters?" I go, "All right." I figured it'd be 6 guys, 7 guys come up to Sacramento. There's 4 busloads, and I'm doing it, and they're bracing me. And they're like, "Yeah, you're going to be part of something big." And I believed them, but I was still had my guard up. And years later, I go, they were absolutely right. One of them told me it was important to get in at the beginning so we could be part of that foundation, because that's important, so I could tell my children and their children. And that's how it begins, because like you said, it's not just that this club is young, this league is young, and we try to fast track it so often, but it takes time. And I think those generations going through what we see in the Premier League and the Champions League, La Liga, everywhere else, South America, this is a cultural thing. It's going to take a long time. So when you have to be patient with MLS, you have to be patient with younger leagues. But they empowered the supporters, and they still do. That 3252 is, they have a seat at the table with everything the club does. And they were very honest with them. And so they have that voice. In addition, I think the ownership group has to take a lot of credit, because obviously it's their money. And they said, we want this to be a reflection of LA. We want to be honest. Do not want to defer on that. And that said, it's easier said than done, but I've never experienced anything like it. And they go, it's a family here. I'm like, yeah, okay. It really is. They treat you wonderfully. I've been in this business a long time. I've never been treated this well. And they really respect what you bring. And it's a collective operation. But all those things, you have to be honest. You can't fast track it. It's got to be organic, and every part of it has to be do their role. But I would say the supporters are a big part, because people come to see them, and they play a big part in this. They get a say. If there's, outside of player acquisitions, everything else they'll get the ear bent by the leadership in LAFC to see what's important. So it was very honest with that, and then just looking where they wanted to build this team. Obviously, a big connection to South America, so they really worked on the scouting. And I would say also that they didn't take shortcuts in creating a club that they feel is on the level, not of MLS clubs, good MLS clubs, but big European clubs, a full staff, all the analytical stuff that you need, anything that a big club, to some limitations, obviously, because they're not Man City or Liverpool, that they can kind of use, so that the players come here and they feel that this is a big time club, great performance center, all that across the board. They want to make sure that it's big. And obviously that comes with a dollar sign attached to it, but they know it's worth it, and it's paying off in a big way.
One of the things that they did early on was hire Steve Cherundolo, and he was a coach, I think, from my perspective at least, is a coach that a lot of American fans kind of had their eye on. We know what he was doing in Hanover, and his time in Las Vegas, and he gets to LAFC, and success has come pretty quickly for him. I wonder, as we look at this matchup, it's part of the narrative. Is this matchup between Steve Cherundolo and Jim Curtin, two of the, I guess, premier coaches in MLS? Tell me what Steve Cherundolo is doing right, and what you expect with this matchup with Jim Curtin.
Well, I don't think anyone expected it to be this good. And I remember when they hired him, because LAFC said, we're casting a wide net. We're looking for coaches. And there were really good candidates that were based in South America with South American clubs. There were some guys in Europe. There were some guys who used to coach national teams. They interviewed all. I don't have that list, but I certainly trust John Thorrington when he said it. Steve Cherundolo was already with the club, with Las Vegas, when he got the job. There was a pushback because that first year in Las Vegas, it wasn't a result-driven concept. That was to get players ready for the first team in a desperate year for LAFC, because they were hit by injuries and COVID and international duty. So they were really shorthanded. So they needed to have cover. They brought some players up from USL, and they kind of fed them through that Las Vegas light. So it was a baptism by fire for Steve Cherundolo. And what he did there was good. He got players ready, didn't get results. But people saw the lack of results and say, why is he getting this job? You dig deeper and you see what he did in Germany, getting all the licenses. 20 years around that. And then when we wanted to do like a video on him ahead of his announcement, they gave us a list of coaches in Germany. My eyes just got massive. It was the creme de la creme, Ralph Ragnick, all the way down. And we're reaching out to them and go, yeah, we'll speak on Steve's behalf, tell you what he does well. And we were blown away. It was guys you recognize from all over the German football, which is really the rock star of coaching right now when you look at the Tuchels and the Jurgen Klopps. So that gave us some peace, but we'd have never thought that it would have gone as well as it did. I love Steve because he doesn't hit you like a big time coach. He'll sometimes come in shorts and sandals to training. He'll have a chill conversation with you. He's San Diego surfer guy through and through. And that doesn't mean he's going to be a good coach, but it was very disarming and I liked it. Now, the key to him, because they put a lot of weight on his shoulders, and all the players say this to a man. And you got to remember, they brought in 7-8 new players, veteran guys from all over the league and beyond, Kellen Acosta, Max Crepeau, Ilie Sanchez, among others. Then they had that second wave of guys Gareth Bale. I'll remember when I got the email that they were going to get Gareth Bale. I wrote back, "This is a joke, right? Is it April Fool's?" It was June. I go, "No." And Giorgio Chiellini, Danny Buang, and Christian Teo. It was insanity. And I said, "How can you manage all these players?" Well, he has, even to the point where he has real adult conversations with them, and we've seen it down the playoff run, and they all rave about how Steve has managed it. From taking Carlos Vela out in the 70th minute almost every game, and Vela coming out without any discussion. No one arguing about not being in the 11. Happy to make an impact off the bench. Not fast tracking Giorgio Chiellini or Gareth Bale or Christian Teo. But when you go to training, they love being there. It's not like, hey, why am I not playing? But that's still a tough conversation. He's had all of these, and it hasn't caused a blip. We haven't had a story break where Gareth Bale's unhappy or this is unhappy. They are under that roof. They trust in Steve and will follow him everywhere, and hence that's where they are. But that's where he is. Whatever he's doing relationship wise, these players, these coaches, his assistants are all on board.
That's really exciting, man. It's exciting to see this wave of fresh coaches hitting MLS and just doing really well.
But
Cherundolo,
and you
Curtin.
would, a question to you, Sam, is like, if you had all these big name stars and you were a coach, an young American coach, how intimidating would that be?
Yeah, absolutely, man. I think that's what really separates the top level coaches from I guess that mid tier level of coaches is that ability to handle the politics and the big stars. I mean, I remember Thomas Tuchel whenever he left PSG. Part of it was because he didn't like the politics or the ownership and dealing with all the celebrity players. And you kind of look at where PSG is now, where every week Neymar's complaining or Mbappe is complaining or somebody's unhappy, somebody wants to leave. So managing those egos at the top level is so important. I think that's, Pep Guardiola gets all these plaudits for his tactical ability and his genius mind, but I think the true greatness in his managerial ability has been this ability to take the great players in the world and make them buy into the system and buy into what they're doing and play as if they're a mid-table team, as if they need to buy into the system and play defense and press and do all the pressure and everything and come off whenever they need to come off and all those things with superstar players. It's that balance as a coach, and exciting to see what Cherundolo's doing with it right now. You mentioned Gareth Bale. He, of course, is the huge signing. I mean, anytime MLS is putting graphics up, they're putting Gareth Bale in there. Giorgio Chiellini was another one. Now, the thing about those two players is they haven't played much for LAFC. It sounds like Gareth Bale's dealing with an injury. I want to know about the status of Gareth Bale specifically because he's got a game coming up with Wales in a few weeks that is particular importance to U.S. men's national team fans.
Yeah, I think what some people probably want to hear is say, well, Steve Cherundolo is undercutting Gareth Bale so that he doesn't get games for the Welsh national team. I don't. Obviously, that's not the case. Tongue firmly in cheek, but I don't know the details about Gareth. I know there are some. It's been a struggle to stay 100% healthy and adapting to life here, but that has affected him. So I don't really know the details, nor do I really want to know too many of them. I'll leave that to the guys that break news if they want to get it. I know when I see Gareth Bale, he is thrilled to be here. He loves being with his teammates and being in Los Angeles. Not to be too cliche, but one of those first guys in. I mean, I'm not there at the training when I'm there, but when the training's over, I'm usually there, and he's one of the last guys to go. So I don't know what's happening in that sort of world where he's preparing it. Obviously, there's a lot. If I was him, I'd almost be encouraged to keep an eye on that World Cup because it's so close, and we're seeing this long rash of injuries. If you're not 100%, you could sabotage your World Cup. And obviously, this is the biggest moment for Welsh football in 60 years. So probably ever, based on the emergence of the sport. But I don't know. We don't get the deals. I don't get the details. They're not passed on to us. But Gareth Bale is still under contract. LAFC he's going to be back next year, maybe with a new mindset, maybe completely fit and ready to rock. Even with him not being available with the team, LAFC are here. So, a lot of people, I know they want to make that story, Gareth Bale's not playing. I understand that. But look where the club is. So it's even in the game over the weekend, he was on the bench. Didn't make sense to bring him in there. At least he had the game in tow. So it's an odd dynamic. Certainly, it's something that I've never really seen so much. Obviously, because it's Gareth Bale. There are things that he's dealing with, and maybe it's a case where he needs a full season where he's going to come in here and be able to kind of start from scratch, like so many do. Who knows? Maybe he gets in that final and he makes an impression. Maybe there's a situation where he can come in. But I think the big picture is he's here. He's happy. This season hasn't gone to form with regards to the amount of time he's played or scored goals. But his intentions, he said that when he first got here, it's a long-term move. His eye is on the Euros as well, so he wants to get games. You may be able to just chalk this up to the weird time of the World Cup as well. There's a lot on his plate, obviously. We would like to see him play, but if it's not on Saturday in this season, then maybe it's next campaign. But he is a delight to work with. He's so pleasant to even us. We sit there and we record our podcasts or do some of our coaches shows or team shows, and he's always there and very gracious all the time. So we have to, it's a bit of a mystery right now, but I think we're going to, I certainly hope to see 2023. We see the best of Gareth Bale here. And like many who've come before him, Lorenzo Insigne, who has played, they come in late. We've got to kind of give them that full season to pass before we pass judgment on their MLS careers.
Yeah, it's a good spot to be if you're an LAFC fan, to have to be in the MLS finals and have someone like Gareth Bale not be a huge part of that and be ready to go for next season. I mean, it's a pretty good spot.
It's insane when you flesh it out like that, Sam. You're like, all right, this isn't work. Hey, we're in the MLS Cup. We are 90 minutes away from being the best in the league. Oh, we have Gareth Bale there in an emergency role, luxury role, and he's going to be back next season, and we can certainly build him up towards that. The guys in front of him are all delivered. That front three have been remarkable, and that's not to say that's the reason why he's not playing so much, but it's part of it. Those three guys are working.
It's a luxury for sure. Now, I want to pull back and talk about some big picture stuff because we always talk about big picture when talking about MLS. One of the things that's come up as a topic of conversation is the continued expansion of the league. LAFC, of course, is an expansion team. Austin FC, the team that they played in the semis, is an expansion team. And those are two gleaming examples of
Philadelphia is pretty still new as well,
Yeah. So we know that St. Louis is coming in next season. There's been rumors about all kinds of, I saw a rumor about San Diego possibly being a place, Las Vegas possibly being a place. Sacramento is always lobbied about as a place for possible expansion. I'm curious about your thoughts about how big the league should grow, and what is like your idea of like the best case scenario for MLS? Is it this MLS 1, MLS 2 type scenario? Is it two independent conferences that come together just for the playoffs, or how big do you think it should get, and what do you think it should look like, say in 15 years?
Yeah, I was one to say, and far be it for me, because I work for an expansion club. And if they put a cap on that, maybe there's no LAFC, maybe there's no Austin, certainly no St. Louis or Las Vegas or whoever comes afterwards. So I was always one because, we've seen the European model and we're like, wow, there's a lot of teams. And we know there's not going to be promotion relegation for now. Eventually that's something that may come to their doorstep. And to those that argue there's got to be promotion relegation, I say, look, the biggest stream of income for this league has been these expansion clubs. And without that, we probably don't have a league. I mean, there's just, they have this new deal with Apple, which is exciting. But prior to that, there wasn't a lot of money in the media forum. There wasn't obviously in the rights situation. And even at the Apple TV deal, it doesn't pales what the Premier League's getting. And then you have the Champions League and La Liga, which had a huge price tag as well. So it's the new ownerships, the new clubs coming in provide that stability so that this club can get better, so they can be ambitious. So I understand that. Do I want to see promotion relegation one year? Absolutely. It's so much fun. We look at this Wrexham show and people are tuning in to see Wrexham second round FA Cup games because they are drawn in. The through line on that show is promotion relegation. That is the main character. And that's what is compelling for the owners there, Ryan Reynolds and Rob McElhenney, and why they are doing this. So would I like to see it? Sure. And I think when you get this many clubs, it is almost a requirement, because look, it's 32 has to be the cap, and we're getting close to that because that's the round number. It's also the amount of NFL teams, and we always know those connections between the two leagues, that it makes sense from an NFL perspective. They want a lot of NFL qualities, and why wouldn't you want to kind of get aligned with the NFL? And by the way, in the Premier League, you have all these American sport owners who are affiliated with NFL teams. That is making the Premier League better. This American outlook, whether they want to admit it or not, and they don't want, all-star games. I get it. But the American ownership is kind of pushing this Premier League through these ownerships to become, a super league. And right now they are a super league. Mm-hmm. So I think the NFL and the American sports model, whether it makes you roll your eyes, it works to make you bigger and bring more money to the product. So I think MLS will certainly like to look at that. There are interesting ways they want to accommodate it. I always thought a West versus East, kind of keep them separated, would be interesting. But now this year I realized that those West versus East matchups are very valuable, and I do enjoy them. So I'd hate for us to be isolated by two conferences. They want to expand the playoffs and make this, maybe it's just one crazy season where it's a big giant playoff in MLS. I don't know what that would look like, but you say the word playoff, your eyes, your ears prick up, and you're like, okay, I want to know more. So I think there's creative ways to handle this many clubs. Will the best team win it when there's 32 teams and it's wild and woolly? No, but I'm willing to listen. And I think MLS should be encouraged to be different than the rest. There's got to be some similarities, but I think being different, and Liga MX is that way with a playoff system. It's not unique. But I think there's some real reasons to be different than the rest of the world, because it's US. We do things differently. Mm-hmm. We're far away from all those places. So as long as it works, the talent is there, the money, the investment's there. I think there's ways to be creative about it. Again, I would probably like a smaller league because it's easier to focus on. But we're here, and I think I leave it to those more creative people to come up with a way to handle it.
Hey, you bring up a lot of interesting points there. I mean, I do think expansion has made the league better and more interesting. I see a lot of geographical rivalries emerging as new teams have come into the league. You see like Atlanta United and the Florida teams come in. You've seen those great games between Austin and Dallas this year. There's just been a lot of interesting things going on because of expansion. The Apple deal is fascinating because leading up to the TV deal and the contract, everybody was circling that TV deal as the big payout for MLS. Whenever MLS was really going to be able to level up and really change the way that we think about MLS. And what ended up happening is the big TV companies were not interested in the package at the price that MLS wanted. Apple comes in and offers seemingly this big money, but it also comes with this big production cost that the league now has to incur. And whenever you actually look at how much the teams actually make off of the TV deal, it's not a tremendous amount. It's not like anything that's really going to change the paradigm of how we think about MLS. It is going to keep the league going, but it's not going to take it to a next level or anything like that. It's interesting how we think about MLS. Sometimes people talk about it being this broke league that can't afford the big players, and then other people talk about it as these rich owners are taking all the money and taking all the profits for themselves. And it's like, well, which one is it? Are they a broke league or are they a rich league? Who knows? One thing I do know is that we have a tournament coming up in MLS pretty soon that is just super interesting. I don't know if everybody's like understands how big it's going to be, and it's the League's Cup. It's this tournament that's going to take place between MLS and Liga MX, and it's supposed to be like a World Cup style tournament that's just going to, I feel like, take over the summer. What are your thoughts on the League's Cup? I mean, I think this is going to be a huge deal for the league. What are your thoughts?
I'm with you. And at least the first time, we're all curious to see what it looks like. And it may not deliver the way we would like. But like I said to you earlier, MLS has to do things a little differently. And they have a very eager partner in Liga MX. And I think that's what makes it work. Because a few years ago, and I'll give credit to the new president there, Mikel Ariola, who has seen the shift in North American football where he knows you have to have these relationships. It's not just MLS needs a relationship with League MX. League MX needs a relationship with MLS. They want to get into this marketplace. It's a real good work share situation. And MLS wants to be in the Mexican cycle. They want to be in the news. They want to have their clubs and their players in the Mexican spotlight, which is massive on TV. I mean, with Televisa and all it's soccer is king there, and Mexico is a massive country, and you can gain fans there. So it's valuable for both ends. When you first hear it, you go, how are they going to pull it off? I mean, they're going to take a whole month off to do this, and it's going to it's going to be weird. When if you get knocked out, you still have to sit and wait to that month to run its course before your team gets in there. There's going to be some good games. There's going to be some stinkers. There are good teams in MLS, good teams in Liga MX. There's some bad teams in both of them. But it's an exciting development because it's not like you're bringing in the league from, I don't want to offend anyone, but a less than stellar league. Liga MX is a top 10 league in the world. But if you look at it doesn't have the stars that MLS does. So again, it benefits both of them. And it's a big part of that Apple TV deal. And, look, with that new deal, getting rid of local broadcasts, I think is a mistake. I'll stand by that. Every sport it's excelled at. I live in LA, and I mean, to buy the rights of the Dodgers or Lakers, I'm not comparing LAFC or the LA Galaxy to those teams. It's astronomical. And that's how people watch it. They don't watch the national broadcast. They watch the locals. And I'm sure that it applies to many other cities. That's the part I don't like. Now, having worked at ESPN and Fox back in the day, they say they don't want it, but those networks never really did enough with MLS. I was at ESPN, and if they got behind a property like they did recently with WNBA, people watch. ESPN's a machine. If it's WNBA, if it's the softball, the women's softball tournament, which has been a huge success because they push it. Even the X Games back in the day, when they push it, people watch. They never did that with MLS. And I was there, and I tried to push it, and they're like, huh. And I'm like, this is your property. So MLS didn't really get a great shake there. At Fox, you can see they have limitations. It falls down the pecking order with priorities when they're pushing their sports promotionally or what have you. So I think Apple TV is going to hopefully do it a little differently and really be on board with that. And does it have the reach of ESPN, Fox? No, but Apple, it's Apple. It's the biggest brand in the world. And that's part of the appeal, where they can get this out to people all over the globe. I think we'll see growth in MLS internationally maybe before we see it more domestically, but that eventually will help it grow. It's still the unknown, but I'm excited like you, Sam. I mean, the league's they're not just coming in here with like same old, same old. They're trying to give you a product that's more exciting, and having Liga MX on board is a great partner. Maybe there's some new partners on the horizon. We shall see.
It's fascinating, man. I know one thing that MLS has always tried to manufacture, or at least North American soccer has always tried to manufacture, is a tournament that is somehow on par with the Champions League, or on par with, I'm forgetting the South American tournament, the Copa
Libertadores.
Yeah.
By the way, that's what I think. I think that MLS, I mean, this is just pie in the sky. They got to go to not the whole South America, but go to Brazil and see if there's like some sort of thing they can do with those clubs. I know they may not be on board, but maybe one day they will, because they want to be aligned with the other two big American leagues. So
it would be interesting.
Yeah.
Especially since, there's discussions about faster airplanes right now that would make travel from LA to Europe a lot quicker. Which
I didn't hear this. Really?
Yeah. One of the, at least this is what I understand, is one of the reasons why the NFL is pursuing potentially having teams in England is because there is technology that is coming available similar to what the Concorde was.
That's going to
make air travel a lot quicker. So you won't have those 8-10 hour flights, whatever it is.
What are we looking at? Like 4 or 5?
I don't know. I think like 4 hours is like what you're looking at.
That's crazy.
So if you have that, maybe MLS can, play in Brazil, maybe that unlocks a lot of doors. I don't know. I don't know. This is a lot of speculation.
I love it. This is kind of, I always heard like those like Space Force. What is it? The Elon Musk. I mean, they go out of
Yeah.
space and they land, and it's not so much you're going outer space. It's when you go outside and re-enter, you can re-enter anywhere in like an hour. So this science thing's amazing. And by the way, I fly to Miami a lot, and when they're a little bit late, the guy hits the gas, and what's normally 4.5 hours, he goes, "We'll be in Miami in 3 hours 45." I go, "Wait a minute." So they're sandbagging a little bit. So maybe we can work this
Hey, fuel is
aerospace
expensive,
industry.
man. Yeah, I'm fascinated by the Leagues Cup. I do think it's going to be a massive deal in the U.S. And it seems like any time that these two countries get together, the USA and Mexico, whether it is the MLS All Star Game or whether it's the CCL or whatever it is, it seems to be electric, and it seems to be something that's must see TV. And I think the Leagues Cup could be that. I'm really excited about that.
I'm glad to hear
Let's
you say that. There's going to be some good games, and especially when you get to the business end, it's going to be good.
Speaking of the business end, let's get to the business end right here. The MLS Final is coming up. What's your prediction? What do you think we're going to see?
I was hoping you wouldn't say that. I felt very strong about. I mean, I think I picked every game correctly, just about. I think, yeah. Except I think I had Montreal over New York City FC. I really went chalk. I was very confident LAFC would overwhelm Austin FC. They did. Philadelphia is so good. I was looking at the last two meetings, and my initial reaction is maybe it's going to be low scoring. When they played right before the pandemic in 2020, and they played early this season in May, they scored between them a grand total of 10 goals. So I would imagine it could be wild. And the thing I like about the matchup is because you have 1 versus 1, you're not going to have a team come in here and say, "Hey, we're in the final. Let's park the bus. Let's play differently because this team's too good." Neither of these teams are going to say that. They have a defined identity, and they're going to play like it. So that's going to create a great showpiece and probably some goals. So I mean, I think it's going to be a grind. I could see this going extra time. Maybe not penalties. Maybe not penalties because certainly from LAFC's perspective, we've seen Steve Cherundolo go for the win. They did that against Portland, which helped them lift the supporter shield. Philadelphia Union has so many horses. They came back against New York City FC and just overwhelmed them. Last night I was thinking I was going to pick Philadelphia and how miserable that would make my life around here, because I think they're also a club that has been peppering around doing this. Obviously last year, 2020, winning the supporter shield. When you're always around that situation, eventually you break through. We've seen that with Seattle and Toronto and so many clubs prior to them. It makes sense that Philadelphia lifts it. I think home field is a big factor. So I'm going to say LAFC wins it in extra time. Let's say Gareth Bale, shock entry.
Ooh, that would be
An
exciting.
extra time goal for LAFC. 1-1. After all that I told you with the goals, maybe 1-1. Maybe it's 2-2 again.
I'm excited to see it, especially in that stadium, man. One of the premier environments and atmospheres, stadiums in all of MLS.
And USC is playing across the street, and the Coliseum is literally 20 steps away from Bank of California Stadium, and they have a game at night, so it's going to be fun. It's not going to be scary, but you're going to have the USC fans and LAFC fans. I think there's going to be a lot of love there from the LA sports community, but it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, I heard parking is going to be an issue. I heard that's a big talking point right now.
There is no parking. So if you're going to the game, go to metro.net or lafc.com/MLS Cup, and they'll show you that I'm going to take there's a bus line that gets me from where I live, which is usually a 30, 40-minute drive. I'm surprised I don't take it more often. It'll get me there in 15 minutes, and it's a 5-minute walk. So it's stupid that I don't take the bus in every day or every time I go. But we love our cars here, Sam. I know about in Louisiana. I don't know how it is. We love our cars here.
We love our trucks. A little bit different. All right, he is Max Bretos. He is the Soccer OG. Max, thank you so much for coming on the show. Guys, thank you so much for watching. If you haven't yet, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button. You can support the channel by becoming a member. On behalf of Max, my name is Sam, and this is the Anchor Report brought to you by Bet Online.